The story continues after obtaining the head of Dr. Wilzig. Max and Thaddeus were very happy because they couldn't wait to see the expressions of everyone at the base, seeing them both successfully complete their missions. But because he was tired of lying to Thaddeus, Max finally showed himself who was currently using his power armor. This, of course, disappointed Thaddeus. Max confesses that Titus is dead, and he wanted Thaddeus not to tell anyone who was at the base. But Thaddeus refused. Max wanted to kill him, but Thaddeus took Max's power armor power core. Max couldn't move. After that, Thaddeus left Max and took the head of Dr. Wilzig. Max is locked in until the next day until a swarm of giant cockroaches arrive and begin to eat away at his power armor. But luckily Lucy came to finish off all the cockroaches there. Max then asks Lucy for help so he can unlock his power armor. However, Lucy still does not fully trust Max, but it turns out that all this time Lucy has been exposed to radiation and urgently needs medicine. Meanwhile, Max himself has the antidote and will be given to Lucy if he wants to get it out. With no other choice, Lucy finally frees Max from his power armor. But soon Lucy suddenly collapsed because she could not withstand the radiation. Long story short, Lucy finally came to her senses and she was given medicine by Max when she fainted. Knowing that Max is also looking for Wilzig's head, Lucy invites Max to work together to find him. Moreover, Lucy can track down the whereabouts of the head Dr. Wilzig, but in return for helping Max, Lucy wants the knights with her power armor to help Lucy find her father. Of course, Max is made to worry because he himself is not a real knight. But because Lucy's offer was attractive, Maximus agreed and began to go together to look for Thaddeus. On the other hand, Norm is still confused because how can the raiders get a special key belonging to his mother, while he finds more corpses that look like they want to get into Bunker 31. The day also coincided with the election to choose who is eligible to be the leader in Bunker 33. On the way, Lucy asks Max for help telling her about the state of the Earth over the past 200 years. Because Lucy herself still does not know the state of affairs on the surface right after the explosion of a nuclear bomb. Since there was no longer a topic for conversation, Max told about it. But while they're on the bridge, they meet two strangers. Even so, Max and Lucy do not believe them both and invite them to raise their hands simultaneously while crossing the street. But suddenly they both attack, so Max quickly manages to shoot them both. Although he was also shot, it turns out that they are a group of fellow human eaters. Of course it makes Lucy very angry and does not like it here, because everyone is killing each other. After the election in the bunker, finally elected a bunker leader named Betty. Meanwhile, Norm himself discovers suspicious information from Betty that turns out to be from Bunker 31. Moreover, the slogan that they have been using is, if the banker is getting gloomy, then choose the leader from Bunker 31. Norm immediately confides his suspicions to Jack, as Bunkers 33 and 32 always choose the leader from Bunker 31. Jack didn't feel anything strange. What's more, Bunker 31's resources and education are well above them. Norm tries to ask Lucy's best friend Stev the difference between Bunkers 31 and 33. But Stev said, if the potatoes in Bunker 31 are tastier. After that, Betty gathered all the citizens of Bunker 33. Because by mutual agreement with the leader of Bunker 31, Betty invites some people to stay in Bunker 32. Because it's empty, the rest will remain in Bunker 33. They then went into Bunker 32. And how surprised Norm and Jack also see the state of the bunker that has been clean and tidy in a very fast time. It was a mess and there were bodies everywhere. Norm becomes increasingly suspicious of Betty and asks where her mother's special key is. But Betty herself admitted that the key had already been buried with her mother. Elsewhere, Lucy and Max discover a ruined city and the remains of a new human civilization after a nuclear war. But eventually the city called Sedicens was destroyed by a very large explosion. Then soon Max's injuries got worse, so he had to be treated immediately. After a long walk they finally found an abandoned hospital. Of course Max hesitated to enter because there could be many monsters and bad people there. But Lucy didn't care and was still determined to go in alone. Then Max tries to catch up but never finds Lucy's whereabouts. Until finally he was trapped in the room and fainted from inhaling toxic gas. Long story short, They both came to their senses and were already inside bunker number 4. Then we're shown Cooper's past, which at that time was advertising the bunker because the war had already begun, so the bunker was needed just in case the state of war worsened. Then back in the present, Cooper's got some guys in uniform like sheriffs. And Cooper was knocked unconscious for destroying his place of business. Max is successfully treated by the citizens of Bunker 4. Most of them come from the surface. Before being allowed to join the others, Max and Lucy are quarantined first because they fear they have been exposed to radiation that could endanger the entire colony. Long story short, they were declared safe and joined everyone. But soon the leader of Bunker 4 comes and he only has one eye. His name is Benjamin. He warned them both to stay away from level 12 or the 12th floor, and welcomed them with gladness. Then Lucy realized that the shapes of the people there were various and had strange shapes. Makes Lucy and Maximus a little uncomfortable. Then we're shown back to Cooper's past. At that time Cooper was a little annoyed with his wife for always spending her time at work in a private company that sells bunkers. But his wife still wanted to work because then they could get a good bunker room for their future. Then Cooper met with his friend who said that the Voltec company was trying to make war-peace negotiations not work. Because after all, Voltec is a private company that only thinks about money. Because if the peace talks succeed, then the sales of the bunkers will decrease. Back to Lucy, who was very impressed with the work of Benjamin, who always received the arrival of new people, although they are from the surface. Then Lucy tried to ask about the 12th floor that Benjamin had previously said. But the question infuriates Benjamin and drives Lucy out of her room. At the same time, Max sees his power armor, which was recovered by the Bunker 4 exploration team. And Maximus also discovered the power supply used by Bunker 4. Lucy herself went around the bunker to adapt. Then some people began to gather together to perform the traditions of the surface people. Then on the other side, the ghoul was captured and taken to his old friend. Because ghouls are already destroying businesses on its territory. Then the ghoul pleaded guilty and did not want to take responsibility. Ghouls will be killed. But in fact, the ghoul managed to fight off 2 of his friend's bodyguards very easily. The ghoul then sees a picture of Mold Ever there, and he remembered her in the past. Cooper in the past apparently met with Mold Ever. While in the bunker, the tradition in question is to worship Mold Ever, who is considered to be saving humanity. After seeing the incident, Lucy rushed to see Max to get away from there immediately. Because the attitude of everyone in Bunker 4 is very strange. But Max refused, because he was already comfortable there. Moreover, he gets good food than on the surface. Lucy then secretly goes to the 12th floor to prove that the bunker has a terrible secret. Sure enough, on the 12th floor Lucy found a terrible secret because there was made a place to be used as human experiments. In the end, Lucy was found. But despite trying to escape, Lucy was caught. Meanwhile, Max himself relaxes in his room while watching a movie. The ghoul himself comes to the tin farmer's house in search of Moldever's whereabouts. Because if not, the ghouls will finish them all off. Out of fear they end up telling everything the ghoul needs. And after obtaining the required information, the ghoul finally left there. In the past, Cooper himself came to a Mold Ever event that explained the war. So that Cooper, who was there, thought that all the words he heard were nonsense. Then Mold Ever tried to convince Cooper that his principles were wrong. And Mold Ever also admitted that he knew his wife. It turns out that Mold Ever knew that Cooper's wife was working on unlimited resources, so that they could be used in the bunker. Then Mold Ever intends to spy on Cooper's wife with Cooper's help. But Cooper refused and kept Mold Ever's eavesdropping device. Back to Lucy, who was arrested for violating bunker rules. All Lucy guessed was wrong because the experiment on the 12th floor was to detain the original inhabitants of Bunker 4 who were constantly experimenting on the surface to become Gulper. Gulper fought back and escaped from Bunker 4. Although Lucy understands the situation, Lucy must still be punished for breaking the rules and committing violence in the bunker. In the end, Lucy is punished by being thrown to the surface. But even so, they are very good. Lucy remains supplied with food for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Max finally comes to his senses and steals Bunker 4's power core to activate his power armor. After that he immediately rummaged through Bunker 4. Though strange as it may seem, they are all very good people. After exiting the bunker, Lucy assumes that stealing their power core is wrong. And Lucy asks Max to return it. Max initially refuses because they need his power armor. But in the end Max melted and returned his power core. After that Lucy thinks that Max is a good person, until Max finally tells him how he got his power armor. But anyway Lucy still accepts Max, because he also once hurt someone. Meanwhile, Thaddeus was still struggling to find a radio tower for pickup, although his leg was badly injured as a result of Maximus. Thaddeus kept walking until he met a stranger who offered him a medicine for his feet. Thaddeus didn't believe it at first, but he had no other choice. Thaddeus was then treated and it turns out the wound on his leg instantly healed. And in return, Thaddeus gave his power core that he got from Maximus. At Bunker 33, all of the raiders' prisoners are dead, suspected of being poisoned by someone, and it appears that Norm suspects Betty to be the culprit. Then Betty immediately divided some people to live in Bunkers 33 and 32. Norm lives in Bunker 33, Jack and Stev live in Bunker 32. On the other hand, the ghoul finds traces of Thaddeus and manages to find the dog again. Cooper in the past finally tapped into his wife's device, but Cooper finally realized that his actions were wrong. Later that night Cooper kept thinking and finally took his interceptor device that was in the trash. Long story short, Lucy and Max managed to find Thaddeus. Thaddeus, who saw them both, immediately shot at him. But all the shots were missed, until Thaddeus unknowingly stepped on a trap that made his neck stuck by an arrow. Then when taken, Thaddeus' wounds heal again, which indicates Thaddeus will become a ghoul. Because the invitation came, Thaddeus was afraid of being finished off by the Brotherhood, because he had become a ghoul. Max then takes Wilzig's head and tells Thaddeus to leave. Then Max changed his head, and the original head was taken Lucy to get away from there. In Bunker 33, some people don't want to stay in Bunker 32. However, due to coercion, they finally obeyed Betty's will. When Betty is not in her office, Norm secretly accesses Betty's computer and contacts the leader of Bunker 31, pretending to be Betty. But Leader 31 instead asks if Betty was caught. It makes Norm all the more because Betty asked to immediately come to Bunker 31. In the end, Norm goes into Bunker 31 alone. Max finally gets in front of the Brotherhood leader. Then when checked, it turned out that the head was fake. Max will be sentenced to death. But Den was there to defend Max from being killed. Max confesses that Titus was killed while escaping from the monster. And Max promised to bring them to the original Wilzig's head. On the other hand, Lucy finally reaches Moldever's headquarters to give Wilzig his head. After that Lucy finally met Moldever in person. In the end Moldever managed to get the chip that was in Wilzig's neck. Then we are shown the truth. As Cooper listens to his wife's conversations with the top brass of the Voltec company, he suggests dropping the bomb himself, instead of waiting for war. But even then there are still many problems, if later they will live in the bunker. That's why they held a meeting to find a brilliant idea, so that the humanity that is in the bunker stays awake for many years. In the end, I think of a way that people in the days before nuclear war, they will be put to sleep and will wake up alternately to become leaders in the bunker. Sure enough, Norm, who was in Bunker 31, found a lot of capsules. One of them was his father's capsule. And Bunker 31 is led by a robot that uses human brains. On the other hand, Moldever tells if his father is not from the present, except in the days before the war. Lucy's mother Rose discovers something Hank has been hiding. But then I realized Hank was guilty. Rose runs away with Lucy. Finally joined the city, and very close to Moldever. But when Hank picks her up, Rose doesn't want to come, so that only Lucy is taken back to the bunker. After that Hank bombs the city, and that's how everyone still wants to live in the bunker owned by the Voltec company. The chip in Wilzig's neck was cold fusion, or unlimited power. And Moldever invites Lucy to create a new world on a better surface, instead of living in a bunker. The last step at the moment is that Hank has to give the code, so that cold fusion can be activated. Moldever also tells Lucy if as a result of the bombing, Rose turned into a ghoul completely. In the end, Lucy sided with Moldever and asked her father to give her the code. The melted Hank finally enters the code, and the cold fusion is successfully activated. In Bunker 31, Norm is being held there because he already knows too much information. And there's no choice but to sleep in Hank's capsule. Until it waits for the ideal time to go to the surface. Just now the cold fusion activated entourage of the Brotherhood of Steel had already come to retrieve the chip. Eventually war broke out and many people died fighting for this unlimited power. In the midst of the chaos, Hank confesses to Lucy that he has no other choice because many people are willing to do terrible things to survive. And according to Hank, he has already made the right decision. When entering the Moldever room, Max and his entourage are blocked by ghouls who are waiting for their arrival. Knowing the weakness of the power armor, the ghoul quickly managed to slaughter them all despite using his power armor.
Yeah.
Max finally gets to see Lucy, and unknowingly, Max frees his father. But Lucy refuses again and tells her that the destruction of the city was the act of her father. Hank then uses the power armor and forces Lucy to return and incapacitate Maximus. Then the ghoul who regained his memory asked Hank for the location of his family. Hank eventually leaves his son. Lucy then kills her own mother because she could not bear to see her tortured in the form of a ghoul. Cooper, who was there, advised Lucy to leave. Because the Brotherhood of Steel will take control of the place and will finish off everyone who is left there. Cooper is still searching for his family. Lucy finally leaves Max, thinking that Max is dead. Sometime later, Max finally came to his senses. And there was already Moldever in a dying state. And with the cold fusion activated, the whole city is electrified again. Shortly thereafter, Hank arrives to see Moldever dead. Hank thinks Max killed him. Hank himself headed for a city already exposed to radiation. Meanwhile, Lucy herself joins the ghouls in search of her family. After that, the film ends.